You do not need a million views to change your life. A couple of years ago, I ran a Facebook ads campaign that looked like it was fake. The campaign didn't have super cheap leads. It was just a normal campaign with a couple of lead forms with a small landing page that I built. But from that lead form and from that landing page, it ended up getting my client a $300,000 project. But from the outside, if you looked at the campaign, you would have thought, well, it's just a normal campaign. Actually, it looks pretty bad. But that one lead was worth more than some people who chase millions of views and impressions and click-through rates or whatever. If you're a young entrepreneur or you're building a small service-based business, this story will change the way you see marketing or getting clients and what actually matters. Here's some quick context so you know where I'm coming from. I'm Lucent, I'm 19, I became one of the top reps at a sales office doing door-to-door sales, and I also helped home service businesses scale through paid ads, and we ended up generating over $1 million in revenue in under 12 months. This story is from one of those clients. I was running Facebook ad campaigns for a landscaping company, and their average order value or average project value was around anywhere from like $10,000 to $50,000 at that time. So basically he wanted one of those big monster jobs that were $100,000 plus all the way up to 500,000. So I decided to help with that. I set up a campaign. So in this video, I want to walk you through what happened, what I learned from it, and how it completely changed the way I see business, attention, and success online. Because if you understand this, you will stop obsessing over numbers that are big and don't really matter and start to focus on the ones that drive real impact. Okay, so we start the campaign. The budget wasn't insane. From what I remember, it was around $1,000 to $1,500 a month, which honestly, to my 16, 17-year-old back then, it was actually quite a lot. This was real money that I was working with, and it felt like a lot of pressure for me. And I did like it. There were pros and cons, but it meant that a business trusted me with that amount of money. But basically just advertising our design and build services. And I made sure that, all the photos and videos made sure that they matched the messaging, and that had to follow along with the lead forms and landing pages and all that stuff, pictures of fire pits, basketball courts, soccer courts, all that stuff. And for the targeting, we didn't obviously target the whole state or whatever. It was mainly a couple zip codes and the areas that were, more well off. So the inputs were solid. So we had a clear promise, we had a clear ICP that we were targeting, and everything was good. And so when I was done with everything, it was time to let it run. But here's the part where people don't really see. For a while, it felt like nothing was happening. It didn't feel like that because nothing was happening. We were spending money every day, we were getting clicks, but honestly, not a lot of leads came through. No marketer would ever look at that ad account and tell me that you're doing a great job. And that's because there weren't a lot of data. So as a young marketer, when I was learning the ropes, that really messes with your head, right? You open Ads Manager and you just refresh and refresh. I remember my YouTube recommended, my feed was literally every single one was Facebook ads tutorial or Facebook ads tips and tricks or Facebook ads, whatever, tweak this to make your Facebook ads look perform better, whatever it was. I was obsessed with it, and I had so many urges of changing things around in the ads manager or changing the creative or changing the copy, which I did a couple times, but not too many times because we had to let it run. But the main thing was I would look at the numbers and just question myself. It didn't look like it was working. I thought I screwed up, and I thought that we needed to scrap it. But deep down, I knew I put a lot of effort into it. I knew the inputs were good. The targeting made sense. The creative, I worked with what I had, and I thought it turned out pretty good. And we were pretty active on social media. And this guy had been in business for over a decade. I do remember having a conversation and the founder telling me, hey, what's going on? We're not seeing much activity. Nothing's really coming through. And this was a moment where, man, I just felt really embarrassed because I was so excited to launch this campaign and I put so much work into it. but I just had to be honest, like, hey, look, man, this is what it is. It's advertising. You know, you have to let it run, and you have to be comfortable with it. Sometimes you make bets and you don't win. So I advise that we keep it going for a little bit longer, until maybe 1 or 2 weeks more. I don't exactly remember the specifics, but I did remember having this uncomfortable conversation, trying to convince him to keep letting it run. But one day, one lead came in, and it was just a lead form like the other couple people that, filled it out, that turned into nothing. Basically a name, phone number, email, and a short description of what the project was, what they wanted for the project. On the surface, it looked like every other lead. In fact, it looked like on Google Maps, because we would look up the address first, and on Google Maps, it was just empty. So honestly, we didn't think much of the lead, but obviously every lead that came in, I was so excited to see that, number of leads go up. So I had to make sure that the founder, or at least the contractor, was on it and made sure that he contacted the lead as soon as possible, just to make sure that we don't lose any of the money that we spent on advertising. We have to take advantage of it because we paid to get that client. So they set up a time, they did a site visit, and discussed obviously the project details. And it was actually a custom build home. And that's when we realized, or at least the contractor and the founder realized, that hey, this could turn into something big. By the time that the project was pretty much designed and, they discussed the pricing, it ended up turning into, I remember, somewhere around like 400,000 or 450,000. But then as the design got finalized and there were some budget changes from the homeowner's end, it ended up turning into $300,000. To kind of put that into perspective, this was by far the contractor's biggest project. I think their previous biggest project was around 75,000 or 80,000, and this was more than triple that. So think for a second, right? From the outside, the campaign looked like it was dead, to be honest with you, right? Thinking back, and honestly, back then I knew it. I kind of knew it too. The campaign wasn't in great health. I mean, the campaign was okay at best, because it did get a lot of clicks, but it didn't really convert, right? Which now I know is a conversion problem, so we have to fix what happens after they click on the creative, whatever it is, right? But that's not important because I can't go back and fix that campaign. But upon my reflection, I realized, man, I mean, I didn't need hundreds of leads to succeed. We only needed a couple at-bats, especially for such a high-ticket project, to be able to hit the right one and kind of blow everything up and make the campaign actually successful and actually very profitable. And I think this is where the lesson I understood the lesson. My job was never to guarantee a certain amount of leads. My job was to work with the founder and the contractor to make sure that our goals were aligned, right? What did he want out of that campaign? What did success look like? And to be able to get there, you needed to focus on inputs. What do you put in? Because to be honest with you, the outputs, the revenue, what they wanted in the project, I couldn't control. But what I can control is how much I worked on the creative, how intentional I was in the messaging and positioning. So without those inputs, I could never have gotten the outputs. It reminded me of, door-to-door sales when I was doing that. I was knocking on 40 doors a day. That was the goal. And honestly, there were a lot of times where it just felt dead. You talk to a lot of people who weren't interested. You talk to a lot of people and get rejected a lot. You will question yourself saying, is this worth it? I'm sure you guys probably have the similar experiences. Trust your inputs. Because I knew with those 40 doors, and if I kept knocking at volume, at the goal I wanted, on the right amount of doors, someone, and I mean someone because this is probably tested by data by the company you're working for, someone will be the right avatar and someone will be ready to buy. This campaign was the same thing. but just online. So I'm going to share 5 lessons, right? These are important. So get ready. The first lesson, you don't need a million people. You need the right people. If you're a service-based business, you probably can't even handle a million leads or a million clients. Your business could be changed depending on how your business is set up. Hopefully it's set up right, by a couple or a handful of the right clients. In this case, one person changed the business, or at least gave it a much better runway. So instead of asking, how do I get a million views? Maybe start asking, how do I just get my thing in front of 100 people who are my target audience, who could be potential buyers for what I have to sell. The second lesson, one good client can be worth a million of low quality attention or views. If that campaign got hundreds and hundreds of leads, but no real project or a big significant one, honestly, on social media, it probably people would have reacted like, oh man, that's so great. You got this many leads, because they wouldn't know the real business numbers. They wouldn't know what actually turned into real revenue and profit. So your client, or in this scenario, my client, he can't bank, he can't get revenue, he can't deposit impressions. They can't feed their family with likes, but they can build real projects and get real projects. So personally, I think that one client is more valuable than if we just got hundreds of leads and it turned into nothing. And I think my client would agree as well. The third lesson, results can look small on the surface, but huge when you look at revenue. Imagine a screenshot that said this campaign generated 5 leads. People would probably laugh at that and just, not care about it. 5 is not a sexy number at all. You see all these on social media, you see all these people getting hundreds of leads and stuff like that. But if one of those leads turned into, let's say, $300,000, the story changes, right? So whenever you look at your own marketing, I want you to ask, am I judging this on surface level KPIs or looking at vanity metrics, or by actual impact? The fourth lesson is making sure your targeting, your message is right for your target audience and very specific to them, instead of trying to speak to everyone. We did not try to reach the whole county. We did not try to reach the whole state or country. We picked certain neighborhoods and certain cities that were higher net worth, or basically we picked the cities where our target audience lived most commonly. And we spoke directly to the people who cared about this stuff that we're trying to preach, right? That we were trying to sell. That we didn't want to talk to everyone who owned a backyard, because our services are not for them. They probably couldn't afford it. Not in a bad way, but that's not our part of our total addressable market. So the messaging wasn't, hey, do you need landscaping, whatever. Well, it was before, when he was focusing on the smaller projects, but now it was more focused on luxury outdoor living and building that, dream outcome and building that vacation instead of just the small things. But here's the downside, when you speak like that, when you speak directly to those things, you're going to turn off a lot of people, but you're going to turn on the right people, the right ones. And the fifth and final lesson, which is, I think, the most important, judge your marketing based on what is actually important in your business and not just what is impressive to other people or online. No one on Instagram or no marketer would have thought that my campaign was a success. And on paper, it didn't look like a success. And if I looked at it now, if I didn't know the details, I would think it was a failed campaign as well. But what's important is not them, it was the client I was working with. They cared. Their team cared. Our team cared. And most importantly for them is their bank account cared. which is all that matters. And I cannot stress this enough. If you're starting out and you feel behind because of all these crazy things happening on social media, all these 14-year-old boys making, millions of dollars, it is easy to feel very behind. You can see on social media people gaining X amount of followers in X amount of days, but to me, it doesn't guarantee a healthy business. It doesn't guarantee a profitable business, which if that's not their goal, I don't think that should be their goal. I think whoever's goal should be determined by them and what they care about, but it's about what we care about, right? That does not guarantee a successful business. It does help. It does make it more likely to have a more successful business, but it doesn't guarantee it, right? But if you just build the right systems, stay patient, and make sure you put in the right inputs, focus on the right people or the right messaging or the right positioning or whatever you choose to pursue, whatever is the most important stuff, the 80-20, right? Focus on those. And you might not look impressive from the outside, but I think from my experience, it's way better because you will wake up every single day knowing that you've done the right things. And I think that helps a lot with your confidence. To wrap this up, that $300,000 lead changed how I see business. It showed me that you do not need millions of views. You do not need to be internet famous to be able to make real impact on a business. You do not need to impress other people. You do not need to impress as much as I wanted to impress other marketers. I did, if I wanted to post on social media about my campaign, I shouldn't care about that. You just need the right people to trust you. You need the right people to see you, and you need the right people to say yes to you. So next time you feel behind because you don't have as much views as you wanted to, or as many impressions, or as many leads as you're trying to get, I would just ask this question of, do I think that this campaign is going in the right direction in terms of, is this trying to reach the right people? Or is this just noise? Or is this, I would think about your inputs and think, really, did I put enough effort into it to the point where I'm really proud of it? And I mean, there's nothing else I can do. Cool. All right. If you want more videos where I break down stories or from my work, or the mistakes, the wins, and what I am learning as I go, because I am going, I'm learning a lot. So subscribe and maybe stick around, right? Okay, cool. I'm still figuring this out as I go. Same as you. So this is just me sharing my 2 cents and my learnings. So hopefully we can share together. I don't know. All right. See ya.